Gita chapter 4 text 15. Evam gnatva kritam karma purvair api mumukshubhi kuru karma eva tasmat tvam purvai purvataram kritam. Evam, thus gnatva, knowing well, kritam was performed karma work purvai by past authorities, api indeed mumukshubhi who attained liberation, kuru just perform, karma prescribed duty, eva certainly, tasmat therefore, tvam you, purvai by the predecessors, purvataram in ancient times, kritam has performed. Translation: all the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature, therefore you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Purport: there are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their hearts, and some of them are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these persons. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the line of Krishna consciousness for a gradual cleansing process, following the regulated principles of devote service. Those who are already cleansed of the impurities may continue to act in the same Krishna consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and thereby be benefited. Foolish persons or neophytes in Krishna consciousness often want to retire from activities without having knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Arjuna's desire is to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord. One need only know how to act. To retire from the activities of Krishna consciousness and to sit aloof from making a show of Krishna consciousness is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. Arjuna is here advised to act in Krishna consciousness following in the footsteps of Lord's previous disciples such as the sun god Vivaswan, as mentioned herein before. The Supreme Lord knows all his past activities as those persons who acted in Krishna consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the sun god who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons engaged in the discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Text 16. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayo api atra mohita tatte karma pravakshyami yajnatva mokshase shubhat. Kim, what is karma, action, kim, what is akarma, inaction, iti, thus kavaya, the intelligent, api, also, atra, in this matter, mohita, are bewildered, tat, that, they unto you, karma, work, parvakshyami, I shall explain, yat, which, gnatva, knowing, moksha, say, you will be liberated, ashubhat, from ill fortune. Translation: even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Purport: action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. This is recommended in the 15th verse. Why such action should not be independent will be explained in the text to follow. To act in Krishna consciousness, one has to follow the leadership of authorized persons who are in the line of disciplic succession. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning of this chapter, the system of Krishna consciousness was first narrated to the sun god. The sun god explained it to his son Manu. Manu explained it to his son Ikshvaku, and system is current on this earth from that very remote time. Therefore, one has to follow in the footsteps of previous authorities in the line of disciplic succession. Otherwise, even the most intelligent men will be bewildered regarding the standard actions of Krishna consciousness. For this reason, the Lord decided to instruct Arjuna in Krishna consciousness directly. Because of the direct instruction of the Lord to Arjuna, anyone who follows in the footsteps of Arjuna is certainly not bewildered. It is said that one cannot ascertain the ways of religion simply by imperfect experimental knowledge. Actually, the principles of religion can only be laid down by Lord Himself. Dharmastu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. Bhagavatam 6.3.19. No one can manufacture a religious principle by imperfect speculation. One must follow in the footsteps of great authorities like Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Manu, the Kumaras, Kapila, Prahlada, Bhishma, Shukadeva Goswami, Yamaraja, Janaka, and Bali Maharaj. By mental speculation, one cannot ascertain what is religion or self-realization. Therefore, out of causeless mercy to his devotees, the Lord explains directly to Arjuna what action is and what inaction is. Only action performed in Krishna consciousness can deliver a person from the entanglement of material existence. Text 17. Karmano api bodhavyam cha vikarmana akarmanascha bodhavyam ghana karmano gati. Karmana of work, he certainly, api also, Bodhavyam should be understood, bodhavyam should be understood, cha also vikarmana of forbidden work, akarmana of inaction, cha also bodhavyam should be understood, gahana very difficult, karmana of work, gati entrance. Translation. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand, therefore one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, what inaction is. If one is serious about liberation from the material bondage, one has to understand the distinctions between action, inaction, and unauthorized actions. One has to apply oneself to such an analysis of action, reaction, and perverted actions because it is a very difficult subject matter. To understand Krishna consciousness and action according to its modes, one has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. That is, one who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently one has to act in Krishna consciousness. The entire Bhagavad Gita is directed towards this conclusion. Any other conclusions against this consciousness and its attendant actions are vikarmas or prohibited actions. To understand all this, one has to associate with authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. This is as good as learning from the Lord directly. Otherwise, even the most intelligent persons will be bewildered. Text 18. Karmanya karmaya pashyeda karmani cha karmaya sabuddhiman manusheshu sayukta krishna karma krit. Karmani in action, akarma in action, yaha one who pashyed observes, akarmani in inaction, cha also karma fruitive action, yaha one who sa he buddhiman is intelligent, manusheshu in human society, saha he yukta is in the transcendental position, krita Krishna karma krit, although engaged in all activities. Translation. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Krishna, therefore he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna. Akarma means without reaction to work. The impersonalist sees fruitive activities out of fear so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of this service. Those who are engaged in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. Text 19. Yasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjita jnagnagni dagda karmanam tam hahu panditam buddha. Yasya one who survey all sorts of samarambha attempts kama based on desire for sense gratification, sankalpa determination, Parijita are devoid of jnana, of perfect knowledge, Agni by the fire, Dagda burned, Karmanam whose work, Tam, him, Ahu declare, Panditam learned, Buddha on those who know. One is understood to be in full knowledge whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by the sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Purport. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness. Because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratification and three propensities, it is to be understood that he has burned up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire once kindled can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. Text 20. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nitya tripto nirashraya karmani abhipravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Tyaktva having given up karma phala sangha asangam. Attachment for fruitive results, nitya always, tripta being satisfied, nirashraya without any shelter, karmani inactivity, abhipravritta being fully engaged, abhi in spite of, na does not, eva certainly, kinchit anything, karoti do, saha he. Translation. Abandoning all attachment to results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Purport. This freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness when one is doing everything for Krishna. A Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna. Nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Krishna. Such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though he were not doing anything. This is a sign of akarma or actions without fruitive reactions. Any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness is binding upon the worker, and that is the real aspect of vikarma as explained here and before. Text 21. Nirashiryata chittatma tyaktva sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvan napnoti kilvisham. Nirashi, without desire of the result, yata, controlled, chittatma, mind and intelligence, tyaktva, giving up, sarva, all, parigraha, sense of proprietorship over possession, shariram, in keeping body and soul together, kevalam, only, karma, work, kurvan, doing, na, never, apnoti, does acquire, kilbisham, sinful reactions. Translation. Such a man of understanding acts with the mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his positions and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. Purport. A Krishna conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that because he is part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole. It is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme. When the hand moves, it does not move out of his own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Krishna conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like a part of the machine. As a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, so a Krishna conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendent loving service of the Lord. He is therefore immune to all the reactions of his endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna conscious person, fully engaged in self realization, has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not therefore become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions.